Good evening and welcome to the Salem School District Mental Health Team's sponsored panel discussion about the film Like. Like is an indie flicks documentary that explores the impact of social media on our students' lives and the effects of technology on their brain. Our hope is that you were able to view the film with your student and that it leads to meaningful conversation and ultimately a healthy relationship with social media. My name is Tracy Collyer, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Academics and Supports, and I will be facilitating tonight's discussion. Before I introduce our distinguished panel, we'd like to take a moment of silence to reflect on the tragedy occurring yesterday in Uvalde, Texas, and to remember those lost and affected forever. Thank you. Tonight's discussion will focus on topics in the film Like. Although our discussion will not focus on the role social media plays in such tragedies as the one yesterday, there will be takeaways for students and parents should they view concerning or disturbing content online. And now it is time to meet our panel. I'd like to start with our two students joining us tonight. We have Angelina Mcdonald and Adrian Newton. Thank you for joining us. They're both sophomores at Salem High School. They are members of the Salem High School Mental Health Team, and they are both trained student counselors from NAMI. So they go into the middle school and the high school classes to teach about suicide prevention. Thank you. Also joining us, we have Jeffrey Levin. Mr. Levin was a practicing psychotherapist for 25 years. For the last 10 years, though, he has been a life coach based in New Hampshire and Boston who works with both individuals and groups. And I know as the high school principal, I was in meetings with Mr. Levin, and he is always very helpful with all of the high school principals trying to get the word out and help the students. Also joining us from the community is Courtney Asanka. Ms. Asanka is a New Hampshire licensed clinical mental health counselor and a life coach who provides individual, family, and group therapy, as well as life coaching to student athletes at the high school level and collegiate level. She has over 15 years of experience in a variety of counseling settings. Thank you for joining us. Our next community member is Mike Yeha. He's a detective with the Salem Police Department. And we know Mike, he's often working with school district staff if there is an issue. He is also a member of the Task Force of Internet Crimes Against Children. So thank you for joining us, Mike. And then from the school district, we have Mrs. Sherry Smelter joining us. She has been working in the district since 2004, first as a library assistant, but her role now is library media specialist for all 5 elementary schools, and she is also a Salem parent. Thank you, Sherry. Eric Bird is a technology integrator for both the Woodbury School and Salem High School, and he has been in this role for 6 years. Thank you, Eric. And lastly, we have Mr. Matt Barry. He is the principal of Woodbury School. He was a former teacher at the high school and also dean of students at the high school. So he has a perspective from multiple levels, and he is also a Salem parent. So thank you for joining us, Matt. We're going to get right to some questions to our panel. And the first one is for Angelina. And you can answer this either from your own experience or from what you've viewed for your peers. Mm-hmm. But do you think the film Like is an accurate depiction of today's teens' relationship with social media and their cell phone?
Yeah, I think it was a really accurate depiction because it really showed how social media can kind of be an addiction and kind of the phones in general being an addiction. Like how the first thing you do when you wake up is check your phone alarm and then check your messages, etc. All of that stuff I think was really accurate, and kind of the more addicting aspects to social media, how you never want to go off it and it's always there to kind of just like your main source of entertainment basically. I think I think it was really good. The only thing that because it was filmed not very recently, but I think the main thing that we should talk about is like TikTok and platforms like that, because that's the main social media platform today.
And can you, just following up on that, you talked about TikTok, and that's with videos, correct? It's all videos?
Yeah, that's just basically like a short couple second clip, just different content, and then you just scroll and scroll and scroll. Every video is a different.
And what impact does a platform like TikTok have on your family, your friends, your ability to complete schoolwork successfully?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that, for me, I've recently deleted TikTok because it wasn't good for me, but it was something that you kind of just go on it and there's no stopping it. You're just kind of always on it and it's never ending. And that can definitely distract from doing more important things like schoolwork and talking to family and friends and such. Yeah, I think that was probably the biggest negative takeaway, but it did have some positive. I think it was obviously, like all social media and all usage of phones, it's a good way to communicate with people and find new friends and stuff like that, but I think mainly the addicting aspect to this to TikTok and like the short clips is something that was not very good.
Thank you. I want to jump to Mr. Barry for a minute because in school, and we've heard about this, that there are these TikTok challenges.
Yes.
Can you explain the impact and the disruption something like that causes to the schoolhouse?
Yes, unfortunately, I know it well. It comes and goes, these TikTok challenges. Typically, the older kids will, we hear it at the high school first, and then it kind of trickles down into the middle school. And it's a tremendous distraction. This year in particularly, I don't remember the exact name of the challenge, but we spent a lot of time regarding, for whatever reason, it was a thing to take things from the school, and we were chasing, trying to find certain items that were missing, and when speaking to the students and the parents, it's more of a teaching moment for them that it's not okay to emulate what you see on TikTok, and it can certainly be a massive distraction. Additionally, there's been unfortunately some bad behavior in bathrooms regarding some TikTok challenges, which is very difficult to manage from a school perspective. And in our district, we have our core values in safety, respect, responsibility, behaviors, and we try to daily remind students of that. And when other students hear that there's unfortunately some misbehavior in the bathrooms, and sometimes they don't feel safe going to the bathrooms, and that's a challenge for us to combat that. So we really try to stay on top of it, and it's very difficult to do that because it's in their hands, and it's very little we can oversee what they're viewing when they leave school. So it's been a challenge, certainly.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go to Mr. Levin right now. Angelina used the word addiction with social media, and from the film we learned that companies intentionally build their platforms so that we become addicted to them. We heard about the prefrontal cortex in the brain. When you see a like on your post, you have the same reaction that you would as if you were receiving the drug dopamine. If social media is so addictive, is it really possible to develop a healthy relationship with technology?
Thanks for having me here, Tracy. I honestly don't think it is. As a personal anecdote, when email came out, which is 20 years ago, 25, maybe some people on the panel would know, my instinct, I said to my wife, Miranda, I'm not going to use email. That my instinct was not to use it. It felt too easy. And obviously we know how that went. But I do have a flip phone, and my friends, I'm 65, and my friends say, why don't you get a smartphone, Jeff? I don't want one. in answer to your question, I mean, I'm addicted to this. And when I get a text on here, I do get a dopamine hit. And I frankly think, I don't want to be terribly dark about it, but I think the phones are the Trojan horse. They're convenient. Computers have saved a lot of people's lives. My father-in-law wouldn't be alive today without computers. They're convenient, but I think they've done way more harm than good, to be honest with you. So the flat answer is yes, I think they're very addictive. And I think if I can be addicted to a flip phone, clearly the quotes magic in the iPhone, it's really, really powerful. And the only the last thing is the documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma.
Correct.
Is sort of similar to, maybe some of you guys have seen it. It's similar to the movie Like, and there are, very briefly, there are 4 quotes defectors from Silicon Valley who worked for Mr. Zuckerberg and others who are on a crusade to help the public understand the intentionality around the addictive stuff.
So, our panel, we met before 7 o'clock, and we were talking about the fact that our phones are not just a phone anymore. It's our alarm clock, it's our camera, it's our calendar. It kind of has everything in there, so we rely on it. I'm just going to ask Courtney Asanka, so how do we detach ourselves from that if we always need it?
I think with anything, if you have more information about it, and watching movies such as Like, will help younger people and even older generation figure out, why they might be addicted to their cell phones. But I think you have to focus on the good aspect of it, because whether we like it or not, they're not going anywhere, and they can do a lot of good. And I think kind of what the girls were saying before, if you change the content that you're seeing, and if you even have different boundaries for yourself of I'm not going to be scrolling through social media for an hour when I get home. I'm only going to use it for this, or I'm going to, follow pages that I find inspiring or motivating. I think you can find some balance. And I think with, the dopamine hits that you get, I think it's important to put things in perspective and remind yourself that the achievements, are the things that are supposed to be giving you those dopamine surges, not the amount of likes that you get from posting it. And it's okay, like Jeff was saying, when you are happy about something, you post something, and you realize, your friends are liking it, it's okay, that's making you feel good. You don't have to think that it's not. But I think you just need to think about it differently and know that it's not really, the hearts that I get on my Instagram pictures. It's, what I'm posting and why I'm posting.
Right.
So I think just more knowledge around it and acknowledging certain things will kind of help find that balance with the usage.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. I'm going to go to Adrian now, because, what is being posted. The film talks about that what is posted on social media really does not reflect reality. And yet we use it more and more, and that's leading to more depression, more anxiety, more sadness. So, Adrian, if a student knows that social media, what's out there, is not real, why is it so negatively impacting them? Are they internalizing what's on there? Why do you think that's happening?
I think it's happening because what has been the way that we've been brought up, kind of just straight into technology, kind of this new thing. We're all intrigued to see what it is, and this kind of new sense of fake reality, what we think is reality, but it's really just what are we now learning is really just a fake reality that's not actually the truth of what's happening behind the scenes, when you can easily make something look way different than it is with a simple app, or you can pay someone to fix something, a photo or anything like that. So creating a false sense of reality can really affect the way that someone thinks, and it can make people feel insecure. That's why it can lead to depression, anxiety, and mental illness, because they're getting told that this is the way it should be, and it should be perfect all the time, when really there's no truth behind the way that things are, where things can go negative.
Do you, to the students in your experience, do you know, because they talked about selfie distortion in students, and I say students, but I think there are adults that are doing this as well. Again, we're role models for kids, and kids are learning this from someone. So, do you know of students who take pictures and post and delete and post it until they get the perfect picture?
Yeah, I think that like whenever, I mean, I do it myself too. It's kind of just out of habit. I told my mom, like, I went out for a dinner with my mom and for my birthday, and I told her, I just keep hitting the button just to continue, keep going, because it's like, I'm like, well, I have to find the right one, and I'm like, oh, I didn't like that one, so I'll tell her to take another one. It's just like, people don't realize, or some people do, some people don't. It's how much you know about it. They don't realize that you took a million photos. It wasn't just like a one photo. Oh, I looked good in this. I look flawless all the time. It's a bunch of different photos being taken.
And I can add on to that too, like, and even if you do know that, even if you do it yourself and you're like, oh, I already know what I do for my Instagram, like, I already take all these pictures and do that. There's a whole, like, review process, I feel like sending it to friends, like, oh, what is it? Is this picture good? Is this picture good? Is this picture good? And it's sort of a thing where it's like, even though you see it and you know that, oh, those people probably did that same thing that I did, it's like, you don't really think about that. You're like, oh, well, they just probably did that and they did it first take and it looked fine. And like, that was the one that they decided to do.
Yeah, that adds to the false reality of it. It's just kind of thinking, like, it just brushes right over our head, like, oh, they probably did take a bunch of photos just for it to look right, or they probably did add the exposure was higher or lower and stuff like that. Just little changes that can really change a whole photo. Yeah.
So this anxiety, Courtney, let's stick with that for a minute. And we know that social media causes people to be anxious. I think you look at, somebody's photos and the perception is they have a great family, they have a great life, they're doing all of these things that I'm not doing. What's that? The FOMO, fear of missing out. What do you tell, I guess, young people who are feeling badly about themselves and anxious because of social media?
And as the girl said too, it can be draining if you're going through, a ton of pictures to know which one to post. It takes a lot of time out of your day, and it makes you feel, a certain way. So I think the first thing you want to do is evaluate your social media use and see if you can really pinpoint certain situations that are making you feel those negative feelings or those anxious feelings. And then if you want to change how you feel about something, you really need to change how you think about it. It's called like cognitive restructuring. And so if you want to change how you feel, you have to think about the situation differently. So if you have a situation where, you decide to stay in on a Friday night and you're scrolling through Instagram or TikTok and you see that your best friend posted a picture with other people and you weren't invited, that first thought you have is, oh my God, we're not friends. Is she mad at me? Should I post something, with another friend so I get back at her? And your brain kind of just spirals. And then you start feeling, depressed or anxious or frustrated or confused. And then, you might want to retaliate, or you're thinking all these different things. So if you can kind of just stop for a moment, think about the situation differently. And remember that we don't always have control over the situation. We can't decide what other people do or what they post, but we always have control over how we think and we feel. So you want to replace those automatic negative thoughts with more positive, realistic thinking. And it doesn't have to be super positive, like, oh, I'm so happy my friend didn't invite me today, because you're not going to believe that. But if you think about the situation for what it is and just think, okay, my friend's out with somebody else, they posted a picture, and that's it. That doesn't mean that I did anything wrong. It doesn't mean that we're not friends anymore. And I'm just going to go about enjoying, my Friday night. And I think if you feel like that's hard to do in the moment, that's when kind of the balance comes in. You need to put down your phone for a minute, take a couple deep breaths, go outside, have a change of scenery, and then come back to the situation. And I think you'll have a different mindset. And then hopefully, if you feel more in control of your feelings and you're thinking, you're going to feel less anxious in those situations. So it's really just putting things in perspective. There's also a term called abundance mindset. So I remind my clients that, there's enough good opportunities and success to go around. So you don't have to feel jealous that somebody else is posting something happy, that it doesn't take away from your experiences. So I think really it's just how you view things is going to change how you feel about it.
Yeah, I wanted to add on to that too. Like, me and Angelina have been best friends for a long time, and we definitely have gone through like some experiences like that where it's kind of felt like it was a competition for a little bit between us, and like we've learned to grow and talk about things when we have like a problem or whatever, even if it's just like a self kind of battle or self kind of thought, like we know it's kind of just our overthinking or something. We always talk about it just to kind of know how the other person feels, and whenever something like happens or whatever, it's like that like it's kind of, we just talk about it. And I think that talking about things really helps when those kind of situations come up where your friend was invited and the other one wasn't. I think that definitely like kind of a self-reflection on that, and kind of with the help of a friend kind of being like, hey, like I just kind of need help on like how I can kind of I wouldn't say distract, but I would say kind of guide myself to my attention somewhere else for a little bit, just distraction, and I think in a good way.
Like a
you
good
can
distraction.
you can figure out different ways to manage while you kind of feel like that loneliness. But I think that definitely like personal experience. I think that talking about things and kind of doing what she said about kind of finding other ways, like if you're taking that day, it's like I have those days sometimes where it's you kind of just want to take a day for yourself. You should be really thinking about yourself, not anyone else, not what someone else is doing that day. It's supposed to be for yourself. And some of my friends like tell me about like how like they stayed home one night and then they were upset because like their friend was like mean to them that night or something happened. Half the time I say to them, I'm like, well, you shouldn't be really focusing on that right now. Like, set that aside for a bit, because tonight is the night where you have to focus on you and you have to be selfish for a minute. Because I think that there's aspects of selfishness that can be good and bad. And I think that that's a good selfishness that you can take when you're just trying to have a day for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, if I were to give advice to like someone who might be going through something like being left out or something like that, I used to experience that a lot when I was younger, and especially on social media. And a lot of the times it can feel like it's the end of the world and that everything is crashing in on you and that it's just like nothing, you're never going to come back from this. And it sounds dramatic, but it sincerely is how it feels, because even though social media is just a thing on your phone, it feels so much like a different world and a different thing that it's like it's so even hard to explain to someone who doesn't understand what it is, because it's just something that's always there and you're always looking at it and you're always like thinking about it. And so things, especially like relationships that have to do with in person and online, it just really heightens all of those feelings of anxiety and like stress.
No, we have high school students with us tonight, but I'm going to go to Sherry because, Sherry, you work with elementary students, and Matt, if you want to jump in, middle school students, this doesn't start when they're older. So you're seeing students with cell phones or?
Yes, I'm fortunate to have the opportunity to sometimes work with kids in a formal setting, in a formal classroom with a lesson, and sometimes I'm with them informally, and I get to ask some questions like, do you have a phone? What apps do you have? And I'm finding that kids as young as third grade have their own phones, and they love YouTube is by far almost every elementary student watches YouTube. Yep. And that is their that's their TV. Like TikTok, Snapchat, gaming, they do all kinds of gaming on their phone. So they are involved in social media use from a very young age. And we have to remember, these kids are truly the digital natives. They started their school careers, much of them in a pandemic. They had to use a computer. They are very savvy. I learn things from them all the time. Today somebody showed me, just switch this, and the camera is off. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, yeah. They're teaching us.
Yes, yes. But I had one situation. I was teaching kids how to use a digital tool called Padlet. It's an interactive online bulletin board. And they were just answering a Wellness Wednesday question like, what is your favorite healthy food? So their answers are popping up on the screen. And the teacher and I discussed ahead of time, will we let them comment on each other's? No. Will we let them like it? There's a little like button. You can just put the heart on or off. So we let that stay. And it blew up. The kids were saying, oh, I got 14 likes. Yeah. And so the teacher and I just looked at each other like, okay, next time, no like button.
Yeah.
So they're very savvy. They know what they're doing. They're smart. They learn like that, and they teach each other. Today I was showing students how to take a picture with their Chromebook and put it on a slide, 2nd grade, 7 years old. Oh. I showed one boy how to do it, and then he said, okay, can I help somebody? And then that's how we teach the whole room how to do it.
Right.
And in 10 minutes, every kid in that room knew how to put the photo on. Yeah. So they're definitely using it, and it will impact them.
You mentioned the pandemic, and
Yeah.
thankfully, the Salem School District was prepared
Yes.
for a pandemic. We were able to provide students with laptops, devices, hotspots if they needed them, and to keep kids connected somehow when they were at home learning with no more, they weren't coming to school with their friends, was a good thing.
Yeah.
So technology can be good. Mr. Barry, what
Sure.
positive, I know you've given us a negative, but what are some positive uses of social media in the we could talk about in the school district?
Sure. So, like you said, it's not all bad. There are certainly some valuable things that phones can be used. Again, I liked in the film how I believe it was this film that it's not a phone anymore. No one uses it as a phone, which we call it something else. And there's a few examples of what we call it. So I thought that was interesting. But it does keep kids connected, as you said, and technology, fortunately in this district, we had the infrastructure to keep kids connected. And that's really how we lived and taught for, let's say a year and a half. But, in school, there's certainly some integration of sometimes phone use in the classroom appropriately, whether it's a Quizlet or a quick tool in the Google Classroom. So it's all about moderation. It's all about balance. It's all about teaching the students how to appropriately use that tool they have in their hands. And it is difficult because we only have them for X hours a day, and then they're gone at 2:10. Mm-hmm. And it's truly a community effort to enforce the appropriate use of this really powerful technology. But again, it really can be used in an appropriate way. And hopefully, more kids are using it appropriately than not. So that's the goal. And, so I do see it work well at times. Yeah.
And someone who helps with that is Eric Bird, our tech integrator, one of 2 tech integrators here in the Salem School District, which is really nice. So Eric and his counterpart, Beth, they go into the classrooms and really help teachers learn how to use the technology so that they can teach the kids. But can you talk about, we have something in Salem that students and staff need to go through. It's called digital citizenship. Can you tell us what that is?
Absolutely. And to just kind of ride off of what Mr. Barry said, technology and social media is the air that these kids breathe. And they have grown up with it. They have grown to depend on it. It builds social structure. It's the world that they live in, and it's the culture that we have built. Mm-hmm. And to simply say no is very difficult. So along the lines of digital citizenship, it's about teaching them how to use it responsibly and how to know their limitations. in using this technology, does it make you feel good or bad? Technology is a tool. How are you utilizing it? And so with the program that we use in the film, they referred to Common Sense Media.
If for those who watch the film, you see the logo, Common Sense, with the check mark behind you. I was going to ask you if you could comment, because I know I've been in professional development with you, and you've referenced that resource.
It's amazing, and I recommend it to everyone out in the community, parents and students alike. They have something called Common Sense Education as well. Common Sense Media works hand in hand with that, but amazing resources. And they have a full digital citizenship package that we utilize along with ISTE standards, which is the International Society for Technology and Education, to build the program. And it's taught in our school system from kindergarten all the way through 12th. And it covers major categories like media balance and well-being, privacy and security, digital footprint and identity, relationships and communication, and cyberbullying and digital drama. And all of this is to prepare them to find balance and to work with technology in their lives in a productive way. Are they producing versus consuming? Are they using it in a way that is positive? And we really cover things like respect, responsibility, and safety, just like you normally would in the real world. They also need to exhibit this online. Being positive, being safe and legal and ethical when they're utilizing technology and when they're having social interactions online. And it's really all about collaboration and community. The thing is, as our students brought up, they're like, well, I really think that they should have included these applications or these things as well. There's no handbook for this. It's almost like the cart came before the horse. The technology came out, it came out fast, and it's still coming out fast, and society had to catch up with the proper training on it.
And so just to, Eric, you teach, or the digital citizenship at the high school is taught in
Yep. So
which classes?
Yeah. So across the grade span, K through 12,
Yep.
we utilize the health and wellness teachers.
Right.
The counselors also have sections that they cover. The librarians have
believe
sections that they cover.
Sherry, you teach it in the elementary
In
level,
elementary, a lot of the lessons are delivered during library classes, and
Okay.
also guidance counselor classes. They do a lot of talking on all the topics.
Okay.
And they do talk about social media as well as cyberbullying. And we even have talking about balance. So at the end of the film, there were a lot of points that I really took to heart about having balance. And the week after we get back from April vacation, we talk about Screen-Free Week. It's a national thing. There is a website called screenfreeweek.org. And they have a lot of suggestions of how you can leave the screens. And of course, we push the library books during that week. But we pull out, the craft
Nothing
books.
wrong with reading a book.
The paper airplane books come out,
Yeah.
explore nature,
Yeah.
get into a series, but
Yeah.
there's all kinds of ways to promote being screen-free. So we integrate that with the digital citizenship curriculum
Okay.
to encourage balance.
Yeah. And you mentioned the resources. They are on, we have a web page that we've created with those resources and strategies that were shared at the end of the movie. So it's at sau57.org/like. Parents can find that list of resources there that IndieFlix shared with us. So that's good. I think what does, there are times when students will see things on social media, either it's directly to them or maybe it just pops up because of the algorithm, and it's disturbing, and it's scary, and it's uncomfortable. Mr. Berry, first for our students, what advice could you give students who come across that?
It's an important topic to address. I think our district does a really good job of building strong relationships, adults and students. So an advice I would give to a student is tell a trusted adult, whether that's a teacher, your counselor, even your parents. And it doesn't mean the world's going to end. It doesn't mean someone's going to get in trouble automatically. It's just a way for us to understand the situation, understand why it's causing an issue in their school life or a disruption in the school life. And in my experience, fortunately, there hasn't been some catastrophic things, but we really do a good job of hearing the student, where their perspective, and getting understanding of why they're feeling that way, and working with their child, working with the family regarding the next steps. So to answer your question, the number one thing would be just tell a trusted adult, or bring a friend to tell a trusted adult with you.
Right.
Right. It's more the merrier regarding trying to help.
Having been a dean at the high school
Sure.
with you and
Yes.
a principal, and I
Yep.
think the other thing is if kids see something, don't engage with the
Absolutely
person
not.
on social media.
Yep.
Just stop.
Sure.
Don't respond. Don't
Correct.
ask questions.
Yeah,
It's better to just let someone know.
A lot of the times when it gets, let's say, in my level, things have gone a little too far, and certainly the person who would bring a situation didn't like something going on, but they're engaging, so they're kind of part of the problem per se. Maybe they didn't start the problem, but you're not helping it by continuing
Right.
it. So that's a
Right.
great advice. And I do want to say, we're here to help. We're not here to really, get people in trouble, or we're really here to just understand where they're coming from and help them, have it not be a distraction moving forward.
Yep.
And like I said, it doesn't mean someone's going to get in trouble right away.
Right.
But really just seek out a trusted adult to explain what's going on.
Mike, there comes a time when social media usage crosses a line, and we do need to, notify Salem PD. And, what would your advice be, probably to parents at that point, in helping them, navigate social media with their kids?
Well, first, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Thank you. From law enforcement perspective, there's a lot of social media sites that we deal with. There's too many of them. Just to name a few, Twitter, Facebook, those are the common sites that we deal with. Once something is posted on social media, it can be recovered, even though it's been deleted. And this is something the parents, they need to monitor and understand how the process works. Because if something is actually deleted, that you can't see it on your device, it doesn't mean that we can't recover it. If a post was sent out to as a threat or to harm someone or anything in that, it could trigger a police investigation, and that would lead to a criminal prosecution. The advice is always just monitor what your children are doing on social media. Just pay attention to what's being posted. Take the time and educate your children on the usage of social media and what's going out there, because it could create a problem for everyone, especially in the family.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. I think they call it the digital footprint. And I'm looking over to Eric and Sherry, our technology experts. But, once it's out there, it's out there.
It's out there.
Yeah.
And then you can't take it back.
Yeah.
Because if that device comes to us as a piece of evidence, we can do our due diligence part of the investigation to retrieve that information.
Right. And there have been times, I know, when I was working here at the high school, I would be looking at social media, or, a student would be looking at social media, and it's helped some kids. They let an administrator know, I'm concerned about my friend, and we've, I know on the weekends called parents, is so-and-so okay? Are they home with, so it can be a helpful tool, but,
The thing is, like someone had mentioned here on the panel, that if you're upset about something, put the device down, take your time before you send the message out. And that's important, because yes, you did it based on emotions, and that's a common theme when somebody, is being suspected of sending a threatening message. I didn't mean to. I wasn't planning on it. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I was just in the moment. Okay, we understand that. And that's why this is a great advice. Put the device down, walk away from it, and then if you still want to post that, then there might be some consequences in the future. But just take time before you send that message out.
Yeah. It's funny. I remember a candidate coming in for an interview once, and she walked in and she knew a couple of things. Oh, you ran this race, or you did this, and I thought, yes. How do you know that? And she said, I Googled you, and I was taken back by that a little bit. But you're right. Once it's out there, it's out there. Jeff, I want to ask your response. There was a statement in the movie, and it was something like, are you using technology, or is technology using you? And I just wanted to get your response to that comment.
Well, thanks for the question. Just as a prelude, someone down the line mentioned that social media is the air we breathe, or technology is the air we breathe. I'm sure Principal was looking at my mask here and my snorkel, wondering why I would bring this. And I've used this with kids to try to illustrate, look, the air that you're breathing is really different. And I just think the wider context, as my friend Justice Broderick would say, there's no social emotional growth on a phone. It happens eyeball to eyeball. And that, I'm convinced of that, and I'll never get away from that. So when I hear about third graders being given phones, it makes my heart sink. I just think, I think they've brought more harm than good. And the only thing I would add is, if you're a psychologist, you look at the condition of childhood today, you look at the breakdown of the institutions that used to guard all of us and nurture all of us, from the YMCA to the Boys Club to the family. The average American family has dinner 2 times a week out of 7. We're all on the go. The phones fuel it. It's sort of a complicated sociological analysis, but the building blocks for a solid identity involve imagination and independence and integrity and intestinal fortitude and such other I words. My phone rings off the hook with moms calling me about their young men between 17 and 25 who aren't launching. And I think they're not launching because they don't have adequate amounts of imagination and independence. So I think we're all getting used by the phone. And I would encourage people to watch The Social Dilemma on Netflix. Has anyone on the panel seen it? I mean, it's pretty disturbing to have there's a fellow with reddish hair who was working with Facebook, who started this nonprofit to sort of warn people about the manipulation behind all of it. And I think my instincts were right when I said, Miranda, I don't want to use email. And I have a laptop in front of me.
Yeah.
like a jerk. But it is so easy.
Well, and I think the other thing about, and I'll use email, I'm not on a lot of social media, but, I think it's so funny when people send you an email and then they come around and say, I just sent you an email because you haven't responded within the 5 minutes.
Well, I think it's because we're all feeling a little overwrought and disconnected. And you mentioned Texas, and I don't want to get into it.
Yeah. But
I think people are inured to all this. I call it the overwhelming tragedy list. So if I send the principal an email and when I go by the office, hey, did you get my email?
Yeah.
And he's probably thinking, yeah, I got yours and 300 other ones. I'll get to it when I get to it. So we're all just feeling a little bit disconnected.
Yeah.
And that's not good for kids. I hadn't made in my notes Maslow's triangle.
Hierarchy of needs.
You need food, you need water, but you need to feel connected and like you belong
Correct.
someplace. And I don't know about, and these poor kids after 2 years of, I'm 65, I was going bananas during the pandemic. I look at kids 10, 12, 14, 16, what's that like? And I don't think we as adults, I'm going to be quiet a second, I don't think we're talking enough about the 10,000-foot view of how life has changed for families and how it's changed for kids. And I think this forum is an awesome beginning on it. And I hope all the parents watching will will email and say, hey, I'd like to be part of this discussion.
Right.
I'm concerned about Salem kids.
Right,
Not my kid, I'm concerned about Salem kids.
right.
Yeah, and I'd actually, if you don't mind adding, when you were saying disconnected, I think that's something that is very like relevant today. And me and Adrian were having a discussion actually a couple of weeks ago about how we just feel like this school and probably many other schools too, there's a sense of community that we see in like movies and stuff of schools all connected and going like pep rallies or whatever, like, you know, like, all that stuff. Everyone's so connected, but when I walk around the hallways, everyone's down on their phone, everyone's not talking to each other, everyone's mad at each other, everyone's negative. And that's just something that I think is really probably because of social media, because we're influenced to go look at these phones and go do this and do that and do what these other people are doing. It's a constant competition, and that just causes disconnection from becoming friends and seeing the world and going out and doing what kids should be doing in high school instead of being on their phones the entire time. And that sounds like a like such a cliche thing to say, but it's true.
No, it's you know, years ago you walked
true.
into the cafeteria. It was a very it was a very loud place because you had 300 kids in a cafeteria and they were all talking and seeing their friends, and it's a little bit quieter these days because, like you said, kids are checking their phone, checking their whatever app they're checking, or, you know, and again, some of it's good. They might be communicating with work or a parent or a sibling they're caring for, but chances are they're on apps.
I just remember, I'm sorry,
Okay.
growing up with payphones. Does anyone remember payphones?
The last payphone was removed from New York City
Saw
the
that.
other day. Did you see anyone?
did.
Yes.
And so I think everybody from myself down remembers being in school with your friends, looking at your friends, animated at lunch, head up in the hallway, exploring who you were in childhood. And if you needed to call your mom, you would drop a dime and call her. And she didn't need to know. I mean, I know a lot of parents that track their children. The terminology kind of, when it first came out, I thought, wait, what?
Yeah.
Are you hunting them? Are you tracking? Why are you? It doesn't allow kids to breathe and feel independent.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. So all the building blocks that kids need, I don't think they're getting enough of.
Right.
I'm sorry. I think
No, I was just going to say, I think it's really good that the students are talking about this, because I think everybody, not everybody, but most the kids I work with at least have the same feelings. And social media has been stressing them out, and they feel like they have to keep up with it. But then they also think, well, if I get off of it, you know, I'm not going to have any friends, or how am I going to do this, or no one's going to know what I'm doing. But I think deep down inside, everybody wants that break from it. And when I was preparing for this, I was telling some of my clients, you know, what are some tips you would have if you're experiencing, you know, negative feelings? And a lot of them said, just get off of it for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I said, well, aren't you concerned that you're not going to be able to, you know, message your friends? And they were like, I was, but then I still had friends. And it was surprising, because the thing is, just get off of it for a while.
Yeah.
I mean,
And kids want to do that. Sometimes when parents take their phones away, which I don't think it should be a punishment or reward, but a lot of kids like it because they're like, now I can't go on it, and now I can't post things, and I can't see things.
Well,
Right.
if I may, you have friends, you're going to see them in school tomorrow. Like, why do you need to do something at 8:25 at night?
Right.
You're going to see them tomorrow. And that just takes you away from being with your mom, dad, your dog, your siblings, your thoughts, your imagination, drawing, painting, listening to the owl in the woods. I mean, you're on this thing.
Right.
You're going to see your friend in 5 hours.
Yeah, I think that there's so much to add on to that. I feel like I'm only gonna do a little bit of it, but I feel like a lot of the distractions that like I would do from when I was younger, I used to have so many different interests, and I remember like just being like, oh, like I want to go outside and like whatever. Now it feels like it's like a chore. It's like I feel like I should go outside. Like of course I should be going outside. It's part of what you should be doing, and like it's just part of like the way that life. I mean, I don't know if it's just my opinion, but I feel like it's just the way it should be. Is you're supposed to experience all these emotions, and I feel like especially one that comes to mind is kind of feeling like an awkwardness when you have instead of just like I do this myself because I'm trying to get better at it, but it doesn't just come like that. You have to slowly introduce yourself into it. But when there's a difficult situation, half the time I'm like, oh, I'll just text them instead of actually facing them face to face, because people don't feel these emotions, and those emotions keep getting trapped and more trapped, and that can create underwhelming or I think it was subconscious anxiety, and that can build up over time, and you don't even realize it until one day it's just you don't know the reason why you're feeling a certain way, and like it's just everything lingers on until it all kind of comes out.
You
once.
can't resolve it face to face with your friend, you mean?
Yeah.
And even me and Adrian can attest to, we've been wanting to like get out more and like do more, like going on bike rides and going picnics and all that stuff, because it's honestly just way more fun and way more relaxing and like stress relieving when you can do things that just
at our
have no
pace.
consequences. There's nothing attached to them. And I think like kids should do that more, because if you're on your phone, you're just inside, you're not even looking at anything. Like, there's an entire world out there. Like, it sounds super cliche, but there's an entire world out there, and you can experience that for yourself. You don't just be on your phone the entire time.
I saw it the other day, Tracy. I saw it the other day with my own eyes. There was 4 people in the car. 3 of the occupants were on their cell phone. Nobody's talking to anyone.
No.
I was just looking to make sure the driver wasn't on the phone.
Right.
But there's no communication going on, and I actually just looked at them for 2-3 minutes, just driving. No one said a
one
word
said
to
a word.
anybody.
Yeah.
If you as assistant superintendent outlawed cell phones for a week in the Salem schools, you know, it would be national news.
Yes, it would.
But I think after the second day, from the 3rd grade up,
Some of the,
all the kids would be happy.
they'd probably
Happier.
be relieved.
Yeah.
We were talking, me and Angelina were talking about different, like, she said this earlier about how a lot of people are just very negative nowadays, and unfortunately, like, so we did something with Celebration Day, and it's basically kind of, unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of people that did it. I think that there was some things that kind of were truths or reasons, like there wasn't enough timing, like ahead of time, so teachers can actually plan out that stuff. But I think that, like, I remember when we would hear the announcements or whatever, and then, like, knowing that I was part of it, and Angelina said the same thing, that we could hear some people say, like, oh, really? Like, are we seriously doing that? It's so boring, or it's so stupid.
Like, no one cares.
It's stuff, it's, like, so small. It's just very little. Just take, like, 2 minutes out of your time to, like, go watch a video and learn origami for, like, 2 minutes or, like, 3 minutes, whatever, however long it is. It's just everyone's so negative about things that no one can truthfully really appreciate the way that something is and just take the time out of their day just to kind of actually experience what you're doing. And I just feel like everyone's so negative nowadays that people just kind of it goes in one ear right through the other.
And
Cause
it's probably easier to be alone with your phone and not needing to interact with somebody if they're feeling that way.
yeah.
I think we adults, when I hear you say that about the negativity after 2.5 years of COVID and so on, but I think we adults need to lead that and say, hey guys, let's shut the phones off and go. I work with a lot of sports teams. I work with the Northeastern women's soccer team, and I said to them last fall after they had lost 3 in a row, what do you girls want to do? And these girls are 20, 21. One of them said, we were sitting in a circle on turf, can we play duck, duck, goose? And I thought, well, this will be fun, but they'll do this for 10 minutes. I mean, 20-year-old girls don't want to play duck, duck, goose. I looked at my watch. I was chasing girls. I had a quadricep cramp. It went on for over an hour. Why? Because I think they're not having enough fun. So I would tell parents, shut off the phones in your house and play board games. And go play table tennis and go for hide and seek on a summer night. Shut off the phones.
Yeah.
Just shut off the phones.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know, and Sherry, I don't know if you want to chime in, being a parent, we're role models for
Yes,
kids.
I was going to chime in on that too,
Yes.
because my big takeaway from this film was when somebody said it's always going to be difficult to set and enforce limitations and restrictions, but what you can do is take that time away from the phone and focus on what you're doing during that time. So one thing as a parent from my family, and my parents taught me this, I get all choked up, have family dinner as much as you possibly can with no phones And we did, my parents, I mean, we didn't have phones at the time,
Right.
but my parents always made a point to have family dinner. And I did it with my kids. And that was the time, that was the one time that they were really away from their phones. And they're 27 and 24, and they both have partners. And I hope and believe that they, when they eat their dinner together, they put their phones aside. But you can start with one thing, and it doesn't, you don't have to do everything all at once. You don't have to do all of these tips at once, but try one.
Yeah. So we're coming to the near the end of our hour, which is hard to believe, but you know, our goal for showing this film and having this discussion is really to bring an awareness of and a responsibility to teach you how to use social media responsibly. Does anyone have a last piece of advice before we sign off here? Mike?
I do. This is for the parents. Please keep your private life private and limit screen time.
Bravo.
Yeah, I think that like another piece of advice is to kind of just get your kids involved with stuff they haven't done before. Like, I mean, there's so many things that people haven't done before, and I think that like I was gonna add on to say that like I feel like there's some things that I just feel like I love doing, but like it seems like no one else does. Like that's why I think I get along with Ange a lot, because we like to go on picnics. A lot of people don't. I'm like, oh, that's boring. You're just sitting there and just kind of just looking at nature or whatever. It's like, no, but I appreciate that because like it's a time of peace where my mind can just relax and not thinking about where this person was this day or that, whatever. Just like updates on life I just really don't really need. It's just kind of, you know, and I think that like talking about the Duck Duck Goose Game, I think that's an amazing thing, that the fact that they just did that for such a long time, experiencing stuff that you're supposed to do as a kid. Like even if you didn't get to do that, like I think people use a term called like killing your inner child right now. Basically saying like I babysit right now, and I didn't really like, I feel like I didn't really color a lot growing up because like I feel like part of it's probably from social media too. And I think that when I babysit, I really appreciate doing the small things like that with the kid I babysit. So I think that just doing stuff, I wouldn't say like kid-like, but do stuff that you haven't done before, because you never know what you might like.
Good.
Yeah, I'll just add something really quick. I think like reinforcing with the social media and with the phone limitations, I think making it something that's like not a punishment and just doing it something every week and kind of a pattern, something like that, to make it not feel like a disciplinary thing. Because once, I remember when I was younger, I used to think like, it's, oh my God, it's the end of the world. My parents just want to take my phone away. And it was like, I got anxious over that. And I think if people enforced a more positive type of thing with social media, kids would be more inclined to, it's just, I'm just putting my phone down, it's okay, I take breaks every week, or I take breaks every day. I think enforcing something like that is a good way to have kids not be so mad about, oh my God, I don't want to like take my
Moderation.
phone. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
I just want to thank all the parents viewing this, and it's really important that they know that the school wants to partner with them in this, you know, I'll call it an issue, but, and we don't have all the answers either. So we're truly trying to help your children navigate this world. Things are being thrown new at them every day, and we're learning too. So we really truly appreciate their support, and it really, some of it needs to be reinforced at home as well as in school for anything to change. So.
Correct.
Can I just say one last?
Sure.
I whispered to Principal Barry has a little fit. When your kids were little, and they discovered they're laying in the crib, they discovered their fingers, and you go in and you go Google and you move your own fingers.
Yeah.
That's called mirroring, psychology. Sure. Phones interfere with mirroring. When your kid comes in and you're on your phone and you're half listening, no, put the phones away and listen, mirror.
True.
How we doing? How you really doing? Because that's the stuff of growing up, and that leads to healthy identities.
I agree with that.
Any last comments?
I think you just have to remember that you have control over how you think and feel about the situation. And you don't want anybody else or a post dictating how it's making you feel about yourself and all those thoughts. And just use it for good. I mean, there's enough terrible things going on in the world. You know, use social media for connecting on a good way, or following, you know, charities or things like that, and just try and focus on the positive.
Excellent. Well, I first want to thank our panel. You guys have been fabulous, and all your comments were excellent, and I hope they resonate with our audience watching. I just want to mention bringing important events like this to our Salem community, as I said previously, aligns with our strategic plan here in the Salem School District. 2 of our 4 goals, one is mental health wellness, and the second is community engagement. So we are thrilled to be able to bring this to you. As we said, on the webpage, which is at sau57.org/like. There are resources there for you, the tips and strategies for reducing screen time, and also there is a survey from IndieFlix if you would like to complete that about the film. And that is it for this evening, and we thank all of our viewers for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good night.
Tracy.
Thank you so much.
Tracy.